This is a request to make a small emblem, and we're going to use GIMP to generate it. I think it would be best done with a vector application, but we'll try it with GIMP. And it's a small one, it's 200 by 200, so it's not going to look wonderful. And we want a transparent background. OK that. And now I'm going to add some guides, horizontal guide first, halfway, and repeat it but for a vertical guide. This is just to center the selection we're going to make next. So looking at the layers, we just have the one layer. Now I'm going to choose the circular selection tool, and the properties want to expand from center and have a fixed aspect ratio. Drag it out. And just make sure that's 1:1. And I want to make this exactly 150 by 150. So that's the exact size of the emblem we want. Now, because I know I'm going to need that later, what I've done there is just go and saved it to a path. It just saves me a little bit of work later on. Now I'm going to make a new layer. I should call it, give it a name, but I'm not. This is going to be for some circular concentric rings. And what I don't normally do is use the palettes dialog, but I'm going to bring it up, and it's just to make choosing colors a little bit easier. And we'll choose that big palette there. I'm not going to edit anything, I'm just going to use it as a selector. Now then, what I want to do now is shrink the selection a little bit, because the next step works on the center of the selection. So I'm going to shrink it by a small amount, 2 pixels. I'm going to choose a color, which is going to be a yellow color in this case. And I'm going to stroke the selection. Reduce that down to 4. Solid color with a brush. And there we get a circular outer ring. Now I'm just going to work on shrinking. Again by 2. Change my mind. 4. Going to choose a sort of mid-reddy color. And again, I'm going to stroke the selection. Reduce that a little bit. So that's the next ring. Shrink again. Same amount. Dark color now. And stroke the selection. So that's 3 concentric rings of color we have. Turn the selection off. And keeping everything much the same, I'm going to go back to my original selection, which I can choose from here. You can see it's now on the outside of the yellow. And I'm going to make a new layer. And I'm going to call it background, which is not a good name since I've already got a background, but you know what it's going to be. So I'm filling it with the same color as the last ring we made. Now the request was for some vertical lines and different ways of doing this, but I'm going to use the grid tool here, and I'm going to unchain everything. So that stops the horizontal and vertical being linked together. So I'll make the horizontal 0, don't want any horizontal. Make that maybe 20, I think. Leave that one the same, and I want the colour to be white. So we'll call that one white. No, sort of a lighty yellowy goldy colour. Okay. Now then, look a bit far apart, so we'll change that to 10. We'll half the distance between them. And that looks okay. So there we have some vertical stripes in our logo background. So what we'll do now is put in a logo in the center. I've made one already in true Blue Peter style, and I'm going to paste it into. Notice it's there in the layers as a floating selection. So we'll anchor it, and I'm going to duplicate it. Now what I'm going to do is I've changed those back to black and white. I'm going to use a gradient. Gradient wants to be foreground to transparent, so that's white to transparent, and a radial shape. Making sure we're on the top layer there, we can drag across. If you don't like it, great thing is you can go back and do it again. And as many times as you like. Once you've got it the way you want, you can adjust the opacity with the slider. And that will give a slight effect of shape to it. Now what I'm going to do, you can't see it there, but layer, I'm going to merge the layer down there. So we now have just that one layer again. Drag it down to under the rings, and you can see we've now got 3 concentric rings and a logo. Now choosing the concentric rings layer, I'm going to use a bevel filter. It's in Filter Distort, Bevel. And you need to play around with the settings, but I've found a width of 10 and shape of spherical, azimuth around 130 and light about 40. And I'm going to, you can't see it, it's off the capture, but apply it and you get that effect, which gives a little bit of depth to it. Now I've got all these layers. What I'm going to do, I'm going to save as now. Save it as a GIMP XCF. Because what I'm going to do is I'll merge all the visible layers. You can see that there. Right click in the layers dialog and select merge all visible layers. I think you can do it from the menu, but I always use that. So we've now just got the one image, or one layer rather. Duplicate it. I'm going to add a layer mask, black full transparency layer mask. And I'm going to change the mode in the layers to subtract. Again, it's off the screen, but it is, you can see the mode there is subtract. And I'm going to go back to my tools and gradient, and I want foreground to background, black to white. And I want a linear gradient now. Making sure I'm on the top layer. Apply the gradient. Not very good. Undo it. try again and slightly different once more. It's a little bit better, but not quite right. And once you got it the way you want it, that'll do me. You can adjust the opacity of that layer again. It just gives a little bit of a shade from top to bottom. And once you're there, you can save it as a PNG for your project.